Welcome to Sleepy Contemplations. Here, we do not chase, we do not hurry, we do not search for answers, we simply feel. I invite you to take the clamor of the world and set it down outside your door, as if shrugging off a heavy coat, soaked through with rain, the responsibilities of the daytime, the swirling thoughts, the unfinished anxieties, let them all remain there. With that coat, right now, this moment, and the many moments that will follow, belong only to you and to the quiet, vast universe within. Before our journey truly begins, please allow me, in the gentlest of voices, to guide you through a small ritual, a ritual of returning to your body. Please find a position that makes you feel the safest, the most held, the most relaxed, and lie down comfortably. Perhaps it is flat on your back, allowing your entire spine to feel the firm, yet gentle support of the mattress. Your arms can rest naturally at your sides. With your palms, you might try turning them facing upwards. This is a posture of openness, of acceptance, as if you are preparing to receive the tranquility and gifts of the universe. Or perhaps, you prefer to lie on your side, curling your body slightly, like a leaf in the wind, falling gently back into the earth's embrace, or like an infant sleeping securely in the womb, returning to life's most primal, most secure state. Whichever posture you have chosen, I ask you now to surrender the weight of your body, without reservation, inch by inch completely, to the bed beneath you. Let us begin from the top. Feel the back of your head. Feel its weight, how it settles securely into the soft cradle of your pillow. The pillow accepts all your scattered thoughts, allowing your mind, for a time, to simply cease its thinking. Now, gently guide your attention downwards, to your neck and your shoulders. Do you notice any tightness there? That is the invisible weight you have carried throughout the day. Now, on your next exhale, I want you to imagine that stiffness, like a block of ice in warm water, slowly melting away. Your shoulders, slack and heavy, fall open to the sides. Next, feel your entire back, from your shoulder blades, down your long spine, to your lower back. Feel how completely, how closely, it molds to the surface of the bed. Every point of contact is like a tiny anchor, holding you safely, securely. In this quiet harbor, the weight of your body is sinking, continuously sinking, and yet, your consciousness, because of this, is becoming lighter and lighter, as if it might soon begin to float, further down, to your pelvis, your legs, your knees, your ankles, all the way to the tips of your toes. Feel how this sense of heaviness, like warm, viscous honey, slowly flows through your entire body. Your body is so secure, so very still. Now, in the gentlest way possible, close your eyes, not squeezing them shut, for that brings tension, but rather like to feathers, meeting softly in midair, like a butterfly, upon the heart of a flower, slowly folding its beautiful wings. Feel your eyelids as warm velvet curtains, slowly, so slowly, descending, completely shutting out all the visible light, colors, and commotions of the outside world. Your world, in this instant, has become incredibly simple, incredibly pure. There is only the endless, gentle darkness, and your own awakened inner senses. In this gentle darkness, I invite you to take your floating attention, like a soft, delicate feather, and place it gently, so gently, upon your sense of hearing. Carefully, begin to distinguish. What do you hear? Perhaps it is the sound of the wind, from far, far away. It doesn't sound like it's blowing. It feels more like it's whispering, like the breath of the universe, leaving a series of soft, unspeakable sighs upon the cold glass of your window. It is telling stories of the stars, of the void, of eternity, and you are listening. Perhaps it is the muffled hum of distant traffic. It is no longer a jarring noise, but rather, its sharp edges and anxieties have been filtered by distance and the night. It has become like a distant, undulating, golden river. Every car light is a small fish in that river, swimming quietly, tirelessly, toward an unknown destination. Or perhaps, from a corner of the room, you can hear the almost imperceptible, low-frequency hum of an appliance on standby. It is the never-ceasing background sound of modern life. A tiny, stubborn heartbeat. Try not to resist it. Simply notice its existence. It is also here. It, too, is a part of this stillness. But whatever you hear, I now invite you to go deeper, even deeper within, to listen to that eternal, rhythmic sound that is closest to the source of your life, the sound that has been with you from the moment of your birth until this very moment, and has never once stopped. That is your own breath. An inhale and an exhale. Bring all of your attention, with focus and with gentleness, to the rise and fall of this breath. Feel the stream of air, carrying with it that unique, cool scent of the night, as it slowly passes through your nostrils, glides down your throat, and enters your body, filling your lungs like a gentle wave. Feel how your chest and your abdomen, in response, rhythmically and gently rise, like a small hill, peacefully rising and falling under the moonlight. Then, with the exhale, feel that warm stream of air being slowly, completely, released from your body. Imagine it is carrying away the very last traces of tension, carrying away the old, stale energy that no longer serves you. Your chest and abdomen, in turn, peacefully fall back into place. An inhale and an exhale, like the tides on a shore, gently coming and going, washing over the sand, taking all imprints with them, like the great pendulum in an ancient temple, swinging back and forth, with solemn, silent grace. This sound is the most primal, most faithful clock of your existence. It does not rush you. It does not judge you. It never tells you to be faster or be slower. It simply, in every fading, and in every newborn, now, continuously confirms to you with its steady rhythm. You are here. You are safely existing. You are alive. And the theme we will explore together tonight is one that is intimately connected to this clock time. It is a grand concept that you use, discuss, and even wrestle with every single day. You use it to set tomorrow's alarm. That repeating sound is both a call to a new beginning, and at times, a relentless push. You race against it, sprinting towards one deadline after another, attempting to fulfill seemingly infinite desires within its linear, flowing riverbed. When you are immersed in something you love, whether reading a captivating book, or having a heart-to-heart conversation with a dear friend, you forget it completely, as if you have leapt out of the river of time and into a timeless, joyous domain. And yet, on some idle afternoon, long with sunlight, as you gaze at the dust motes dancing in the air, you will find yourself inexplicably wishing for more of it, so much more. But have you ever truly paused, just here, in a boundless silence filled with the sound of your own breath, and asked that deepest, most ancient part of yourself, in a voice barely above a whisper, time, what is it? Really? Is it a cosmic metronome, wound up and set ticking at the very point of the Big Bang? That unparalleled, incandescently grand explosion? Is it the invisible, omnipresent web that weaves the laws of the universe, that makes the stars revolve, life metabolize, and the chain of cause and effect hold true? Or is it possible that this entire grand concept is merely a tapestry of meaning, intricately woven by us, fragile humans, on this tiny blue planet, woven by beings who evolved complex brains, and in doing so, took on the heavy burden of knowing their own mortality, a tapestry created to defend against the chaos and madness of existence, a shared, collective creation, maintained simply so we can tell the story of yesterday, so we can hope for the dawn of tomorrow, and so our short lives can appear as a complete chapter with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Is it the greatest, most gentle illusion? On this journey we are about to embark on, we will move like sleepwalkers, our steps light, silent, and without any preconceived notions, we will wander together through the vast halls of physics, and see how time, under the influence of gravity, is stretched and twisted between giant stars and terrifying black holes. Like a river encountering rapids, we will stroll through the quiet gardens of philosophy, beside Plato's cave, under Kant's starry sky, and beneath Buddha's Bodhi tree, listening to the great sages of history as they pose their series of profound, and at times contradictory, questions about time. We will hold our breath and dive into the mysterious jungle of biology, to discover that within every single cell of your body, there may be a tiny timekeeper, following an ancient rhythm. You are a living symphony composed of trillions of tiny instances of time, and we will even, bravely, leap into a sea of pure, poetic, almost fantastical speculation. There, we will float freely, imagining a world without time, a world where time flows backward, a world where all of time exists simultaneously. You do not need to worry about keeping up with my pace, nor should you struggle to understand and memorize every concept or name that might sound a bit complex. Tonight, your mind is not a classroom facing an exam. It is a vast, limitless night sky, studded with stars, and every word I speak from now on is like a shooting star, some bright, some dim, streaking leisurely across this sky. All you need to do is lie still, and watch them, observe their paths, feel their light. Some may spark your curiosity, others may leave you feeling puzzled. Some might touch a deep chord within you, and others still might vanish in an instant, before you are even fully aware of them. Allow all of this to happen. Their beauty lies in this quiet, non-judgmental act of observation itself. Just like time itself, these thoughts, these words, will flow naturally, whether you are awake and attentively following, or have already begun to float in that hazy ocean of consciousness, that space between wakefulness and sleep. Allow your awareness to wander freely, like a small boat with no destination, going wherever it wishes, perhaps to a distant memory, perhaps to a hope for the future, or perhaps simply resting in the breath of this very moment. So now, for one last time, using all the space in your lungs, take a deep, slow breath of the quiet, night air, and as you exhale, I want you to imagine you are breathing out the very last remnants of alertness and defense. Completely relax your shoulders, release the tension in your brow, and unfurl your fingertips. Your body is ready, your mind is also ready. Let us, together, set sail on this slow, deep voyage into time, into whether it is the ultimate, hard reality, or the most gentle, most beautiful illusion. Right now, your body is resting securely in this quiet harbor. Your breath, like the gentlest of tides, is slowly rising and falling. Let us now turn the searchlight of our consciousness from the inner world of our breath, slowly, toward the grand theme of our night, time. Time is one of few things we all possess, yet no one can truly define. This in itself is such a marvelous, such a fascinating paradox. It is without shape or color, without scent or taste. You cannot touch it. You cannot grasp it. Yet, like the air, it is everywhere, forming the fundamental dimension of our existence. We are both intimate with it and estranged from it. We obsessively measure it, calibrate it, divide it, and we organize our entire complex and bustling social lives with meticulous precision to revolve around it and operate within it. Imagine, from the first moment of the morning, before the earliest ray of sunlight has had a chance to kiss your curtains, how the cold, resolute digital alarm on your phone screen forcibly pulls you from the chaos of your dreams. Then, to this very moment, as you listen to this soothing audio, it too, on the track of time, is gently accompanying you toward another realm of dreams. Our society is like a gigantic machine, composed of trillions of tiny, precise gears, the conveyor belts in a factory, the opening bell of the stock market, the takeoff and landing schedules of airplanes, even every single switch of a traffic light. And the tick-tock of time, that very rhythm defined and created by us humans, is the sole command that drives all these gears to turn in unison, ceaselessly. We are the operators of this machine, and at the same time, we are the gears, driven by it. But now, I want you to conjure a specific image in your mind. Perhaps it is the old wooden pendulum clock hanging on the wall in your grandmother's house. Perhaps it is the modern watch on your wrist, which emits a faint glow in the dark. When you gaze upon it, what you are seeing is the most familiar, and also the most deceptive, face in the world. Tick, tock, tick, tock. That long, slender second hand moves forward with a pace that seems unwavering, ruthless, and impartial. It sweeps past every marking, never pausing for any joy, never hesitating for any sorrow. This sight is so common, so taken for granted, that we have entirely forgotten to question it. We often forget that those crisp and pleasant, or deep and steady ticks, are, in fact, entirely our own invention. It is we who have given them meaning. A clock is not the guardian of time, much less its source. It is merely an imitator, a faithful but soulless actor. On its stage, day after day, it mimics a very specific concept of time, one that, in the grand scheme of human history, appeared quite recently. That is, a concept of time that is linear, equally divided, and can be infinitely cut and precisely quantified. They are tools. They are yardsticks of civilized progress, precise, reliable, and incredibly useful. But we must always remind ourselves that they are by no means a clear window through which we can peer at the true nature of cosmic time. They are more like a map, drawn by ourselves, filled with our subjective markers and simplified symbols. We rely on this map to navigate our lives, but we often forget that the map itself is not the vast, real territory, which is full of mystery and the unknown. Now, let us, together, ride on the wings of imagination. Let our consciousness detach from this room, from this era, and fly freely into the depths of time. Let us fly back to that long, ancient age without clocks, without calendars, without deadlines. There, time was not an abstract, cold number. It was a series of vivid, warm events that you could perceive with your entire body. Time was, at dawn, the very first glimmer of light on the eastern horizon, transitioning from a deep violet to a soft crimson. It was the moist scent of dew in the air, the first tentative chirps of birds from their nests. It was the vibrant signal of all life awakening from a long slumber. Time was, at midday, the scorching sun hanging directly overhead in the sky, compressing your shadow into its shortest possible length. That was the hottest moment of the day, a time when all creatures sought shade and momentary rest, and a time when certain insects chirped their loudest. Time was, at dusk, the magnificent and fleeting farewell performance staged by the sky. Brilliant oranges, pinks, and golds, how they blended and washed into one another like watercolors, and then gradually cooled, faded, and were finally replaced by a deep, endless indigo velvet, studded with diamond-like stars. That was the signal to guide people home, a time to gather around a crackling bonfire, to share the day's harvest, and to tell ancient stories. In that distant world, time was also the waxing and waning of the moon, that slender silver sickle in the dark night sky. How day by day, it grew fuller, eventually becoming a perfect, luminous jade disk, casting its cool, clear light upon the earth, and then, almost imperceptibly, it would wane, disappearing into the darkness, preparing for its next cycle. This cycle of about 5 days was the mysterious rhythm that governed the ocean's tides, the innate rhythm of many living creatures' procreation, and the most intuitive, most magnificent cosmic poem of life's endless cycles. Time was, of course, also the grand procession of the seasons. It did not, like our modern calendars, abruptly jump from one season to another on a fixed date. It was a gradual change, a slow permeation. Spring was the first cheerful song of a stream as the ice melted. the fragrant scent of the soil mixed with humus and new life. Summer was the vigorous vitality of pollen and plants filling the air. The humid, earthy smell of the warm wind, just before a rainstorm. Autumn was the first green leaf subtly tinged with a golden edge, the air becoming progressively drier and crisper. And winter was the first silent snowfall, blanketing the entire world in a pure, still white. The ancient humans who lived in that era never fretted over minutes or milliseconds. The rhythm of their lives was in perfect, harmonious sync with nature's grand symphony. Their bodies were the most sensitive of timekeepers. Their skin felt the changes in temperature. Their eyes observed the movement of light and shadow. Their ears listened to the different calls of the wind, birds, and beasts in different seasons. The measure of time was the natural occurrence and completion of events. The feelings within one's body, the signals emitted by the living world all around them. However, as civilization evolved, with the rise of agriculture, humans required a more stable order. We needed to know when to plant to ensure the autumn harvest. We needed to know when to perform rituals to pray for the blessings of the gods. And so, the desire for precision began to sprout in our minds. We began to gaze at the stars, observing the trajectories of the sun, moon, and celestial bodies, creating the earliest calendars. Next, to divide the day, we invented the sundial, a simple wooden rod stuck in the ground, and the shadow cast by the sun became the hand of time. But it, too, was full of poetry on cloudy days. Time seemed to vanish. In different seasons, the length of each hour was also different. It was easygoing, natural, and never imposed a sense of pressure. Later, human ingenuity, in its relentless pursuit of precision, created ever more sophisticated timekeepers, from the clepsydra, or water clock, which relied on the steady flow of water, to the incense seal, which burned at a uniform rate, to the great and cumbersome mechanical clocks in the towering belfries of medieval Europe, made of countless heavy gears and levers. Their chimes, for the first time, announced the arrival of time to the inhabitants of an entire town with a single, unified voice. Time began to govern collective life with unprecedented authority and precision. Finally, a quiet revolution occurred when Galileo discovered the principle of isochronism in a single pendulum from a swinging chandelier in a cathedral, and when Huygens, based on this, invented the first practical pendulum clock. The measurement of time, for the first time, could be detached from unstable flows of water and fire, from vast astronomical observations, and could enter the ordinary household. Time began to synchronize everyone's lives with a precision never seen before, and this synchronization paved the way for the subsequent Industrial Revolution. And as we enter the modern era, we have welcomed the age of the atomic clock. It no longer relies on macroscopic mechanical movements, but dives into the deepest interior of matter, using the incredibly stable quantum leap within a cesium atom as the most precise oscillator in the universe. It is so accurate that it would only gain or lose a second over millions of years. These ultimate guardians of time have become the cornerstone of our modern civilization. They not only serve your wrist or phone, but they also calibrate the global positioning system GPS, ensuring you can find your way home from any unfamiliar street corner in any city. At nanosecond precision, they regulate every high-frequency trade in the global financial markets, determining the instantaneous flow of unimaginable wealth. They even precisely control every pulse of alternating current in the power grid, allowing light to spread stably to thousands of homes the moment a switch is flipped. In many ways, we have completely outsourced our trust in this fundamental concept of time to these cold and feeling machines. But the great paradox we seek to explore lies precisely here. As our ability to measure time has evolved to a state of near-perfect extremis, our understanding of the essence of time seems to have become more bewildered and distant than ever before. We possess tools that can measure a billionth of a second, yet we find it increasingly difficult to answer that most ancient of questions: what, really, is time? We created the clock, and then, in turn, were created by it. We live in a culture completely dominated by clock time. We imagine it as a straight, relentless, irreversible ray, shooting from a fixed past toward an unknown future. On this line, the length of every inch, the value of every second, is assumed to be completely equivalent and uniform. But is it? Really? The next time you watch the hands of a clock sweep mercilessly, mechanically, across its face, perhaps, just for a moment, you can remind yourself, what this hand depicts is just one version of the story of time. A story that has been incredibly amplified in a specific historical and cultural context, and in other corners of the world, in the depths of human history, and even in the unnoticed moments within your own heart. There exist, and are told, countless other versions of the story of time. In some stories, time is cyclical. In others, it is elastic. In some stories, time can even not exist at all. And which story, one might wonder, is the one closest to the truth? Perhaps the answer does not lie in the cold pendulum on the wall. Perhaps the answer lies within us. The journey we just took was a passage through the long, external corridors of human civilization's time. We saw the shadow of the sundial move quietly. We heard the solemn echo of cathedral bells in the air. And we felt the cold, absolute precision of the atomic clock as it defines every crevice of our modern lives. Now, I invite you to let our consciousness, from that grand, external world, slowly withdraw, like a bird returning from a long voyage, folding its wings, and coming back to its warm, familiar nest. Our next destination is deeper, more mysterious, and much more intimate to your own being. What we are about to explore is not the man-made pendulum on the wall, but rather, the trillions of silent, yet eternally pulsating rhythms within your own body. Yes, our daily experience of time does not solely depend on philosophy, culture, or those cold timekeeping devices. Its deepest roots are firmly, deeply, embedded in our biology, your body. This most intimate home you have inhabited for your entire life, with its quiet and ancient wisdom, is actually an unparalleled, natural-born master of time. Right at this moment, as you lie here quietly, listening to my voice, you might think you are in a state of stillness, but the truth is, within your body, an incredibly complex, incredibly precise symphony of time is being solemnly performed, without a moment's pause. Let's begin with the conductor of this symphony. Deep within your brain, there is a very, very tiny cluster of neurons, about the size of a sesame seed, called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. The name might sound complex, but its location is deeply poetic. It sits right above the crossing point of your two optic nerves, the very first station in your brain that receives information about light and darkness from the outside world. This tiny, unassuming suprachiasma_tick nucleus is the supreme master clock in your body. It is the silent conductor of this biological symphony. It doesn't tick-tock like a wall clock. Instead, it sets a basic rhythm for the entire body by rhythmically, day after day, producing and releasing certain proteins. It coordinates thousands of different life rhythms within you. It tells every part of your body whether it is day or night, whether it should be active or at rest. Your body temperature, for example, fluctuates slightly throughout the day, typically being lowest in the early morning and highest in the late afternoon. This is conducted by the SCN. Your hormone levels, such as cortisol, which makes you feel alert, usually peak just before you wake up in the morning, while melatonin, which makes you feel drowsy, begins to be secreted as darkness falls at night. This too is conducted by the SCN. When your digestive system is most active, when your immune system is strongest, and even when your cellular repair work is most efficient. All of these follow the silent baton of this tiny conductor. You might be very familiar with a term called circadian rhythms. The word originates from Latin, meaning about a day. This is the most fundamental law of time your body follows. These rhythms are not entirely dependent on external light. Scientists once conducted a famous experiment where volunteers lived in isolated caves without any time cues, such as sunlight or clocks. They found that, even in complete darkness and isolation, these individuals' bodies still roughly followed a sleep-wake cycle that was slightly longer than 24 hours. This proves that our bodies have a built-in, autonomously running biological clock. Of course, this internal clock also needs to be calibrated, and what calibrates it is the very first ray of sunlight that passes through your eyelids each morning. Light, through your retina, sends a clear signal to the conductor, PSC, and saying, "A new day has begun. Please reset the time." This is why exposure to natural light in the morning is so crucial for regulating your sleep and mood. But the wonder of this symphony is that it doesn't just have one conductor. The master clock only sets the overall tempo. In various corners of the orchestra, there are countless musicians, and each of them has their own metronome. Scientists now believe that almost every single cell in our body contains a miniature molecular clock. It is driven by a complex and delicate feedback loop of expression, involving a group of specific genes called clock genes, and their protein products. This means your liver cells know when to perform their detoxification work. Your muscle cells know when to utilize energy most effectively. Your skin cells even know that their repair and regeneration are most efficient at night. Your body is a federation composed of trillions of tiny instances of time, under the coordination of the central conductor. They operate in harmony, collectively composing the symphony of life. When we travel by plane across several time zones and feel that exhausting jet lag, what we are experiencing is not just a simple matter of our sleep schedule being messed up. It is, in fact, a large-scale chaos into which this grand temporal federation within our bodies has fallen. Your brain's master clock may have already adjusted to New York time based on the new daylight, but your liver clock, deep within your abdomen, might still be stubbornly stuck on the Beijing time it is familiar with. This internal temporal discoordination and conflict is the deep-seated reason why jet lag feels so terrible. Imagine having to manually adjust hundreds or thousands of clocks in your house, including those you didn't even know existed. That is the kind of overwhelming chaos it is. And even more curious, more subjective than these physiological clocks, is our psychological perception of the flow of time. This perception can undergo dramatic, incredible distortions based on our age, our emotions, and our experiences. Do you remember when you were a child? At that time, a single summer vacation felt like an endless eternity, filled with sunshine, popsicles, and adventure. From the first day of vacation to the first day of school seemed to span a century, long enough to change the world. And your birthday, that most important day you looked forward to, when you would get presents and cake, always seemed to be on a distant horizon, requiring you to use all your patience to wait for it, day by day. But now, as an adult, look back, doesn't it feel like years just fly by? As if the pages of a calendar are being carelessly flipped. The new year seems to have just passed, and in the blink of an eye, the summer heat wave is already upon us. Another blink, and the leaves are falling outside the window again. Time, it seems, has had its fast-forward button pushed by someone, without you even noticing. Why does this happen? One popular theory is the so-called proportional time theory. This theory suggests that our perception of a duration of time is relative to the total length of life we have already lived. For a 5-year-old child, 1 year is 20% of their entire life, an extremely long and significant span. But for a 50-year-old person, that very same year is merely 2% of their past life. Naturally, it feels much shorter. This river of time is wide and slow at the beginning of your life. But as you drift further and further, the riverbed seems to be constantly narrowing and speeding up. Another theory points to the importance of novelty. Our brain, like a diligent archivist, is more inclined to create detailed and rich memory files for experiences that are new and unusual. A child encounters the world's firsts almost every day. The first time seeing the ocean, the first time tasting the sourness of a lemon, the first time learning to ride a bicycle. These thousands of vivid firsts filled with emotion and detail, build up their extremely rich memory bank. When they look back on that period, the brain needs to retrieve and play back these densely packed memory clips. And this process itself subjectively lengthens the sense of time. For many adults who have fallen into a fixed routine, life becomes predictable, filled with repetition, from Monday to Friday. It's the same commute, the same work tasks, the same dinner. The brain's archivist starts to get lazy. It will bundle and compress these similar days into a folder labeled, just another ordinary work week. So, when you look back on the week on a Friday, your memory file is sparse and thin, and therefore, time feels like it's sliding downhill, flying by. This might serve as a gentle reminder for us. If we wish to make our lives feel fuller and longer, perhaps we can try to consciously and intentionally create some novelty in our lives. Take a new route home, try a new restaurant, learn a new, seemingly useless skill, or start a sincere conversation with a stranger. All of these are ways of adding new, memorable pages to the book of our lives. So, as you lie here now, your heartbeat gentle and even, like the most precise metronome, and your eyelids are growing heavier and heavier. You might think of it this way. Within your body, there are multiple, countless timelines unfolding simultaneously. Your consciousness, your thoughts, are moving at one speed, following my voice, wandering in this ocean of contemplation, and your cells, your genes, are operating at another, much more ancient and stable speed, quietly carrying out their sacred, unknown work of repair and reconstruction. The clock on the wall might be clearly pointing to a certain number at midnight, but this number is meaningless to the grand temporal world within you. There, a silent symphony, composed of trillions of biological clocks, is quietly and harmoniously playing its piece titled Slumber. In this gentle, dreamlike orchestra, your body is shedding the armor of the day, preparing to enter that deep, unconscious ocean, and your dreams, perhaps, just like time itself, are about to travel between reality and imagination, between what you know and what you feel, swaying back and forth. Perhaps, when we dive into that ocean of dreams, we will finally discover that time is not something you need to desperately chase in the external world. It is you. The biological clocks within our bodies are so precise, so reliable. They are like a silent butler, following rhythms passed down from ancient times. Day after day, managing the internal order of our lives. They determine when we feel sleepy, when we are alert, and when we are full of vitality. However, every one of us knows clearly that in our waking, conscious experience, time rarely behaves with the stability and logic of that internal biological clock, or the quartz clock on the wall. Our subjective time, the time that we feel, is not a straight, uniform river. It is more like a fickle, mysterious stream. At times, it will pool into a deep, stagnant pond, where every second feels stretched into 10,000 years. At other times, it will suddenly rush into a narrow, turbulent gorge, where an entire afternoon, or even a whole week, vanishes like a few fallen leaves swept away in an instant, leaving no trace behind. What we are exploring today is precisely this magical, warped mirror within our minds, a mirror that can bend and distort time at will. You hardly need me to remind you. You can find countless examples of time's distortion from the treasury of your own memory. Let us recall. Do you remember that time you were sitting in the dentist's chair, as that high-speed drill, with its piercing whirring sound, slowly approached your mouth? Didn't those short 5 minutes feel longer than a tedious 2-hour meeting? In that moment, all your senses contracted to a single point. You began to notice all the details you would normally ignore. The glare of the light, the smell of disinfectant in the air, the cold sweat forming on your palms. Time was infinitely stretched by fear and discomfort. Now, let's switch to another scene. Imagine the first time you fell in love. The first time you held his or her hand. In that moment, it was as if the entire world had disappeared. All that remained was the small, yet immeasurably vast space between the two of you. What flowed in the air seemed not to be time, but a kind of sweet, warm, almost solidified magic, a single meeting of the eyes, a synchronized heartbeat. In retrospect, seems to expand into a complete, richly detailed silent film. Or perhaps, think back to those moments in your life filled with pure joy. Maybe it was sitting around with a few dear friends, sharing silly jokes, laughing so hard you bent over and tears streamed down your face. Maybe it was at a thrilling concert, where you and thousands of strangers sang along at the top of your lungs to your favorite artist. In those moments, time, that usually strict taskmaster, seemed to have put down his whip and joined your celebration. 2 hours, 3 hours, vanished in what felt like an instant. When you looked at your watch, you would exclaim with genuine surprise, "How did it end so quickly? What causes this strange warping of time? Why do some moments feel heavy, as if you're dragging chains, while others feel so light, as if they have wings?" The answer, it seems, lies not in the physical laws of the universe, but in the complex and delicate mechanisms of our brain. Let's start with one of the most basic, yet most powerful, influencing factors: attention. Our brain is like a very economical manager. It allocates our precious attentional resources based on the importance of a task. When you pay very close attention to time itself, time seems to deliberately slow down its pace in response. This most often happens when we feel bored or are waiting. Imagine you are in the waiting room for an important interview, or at a train station, waiting for a delayed train. There is usually nothing to entertain you, so you have nothing to do. Your brain, craving external stimulation, becomes restless and instead turns to observing time. You start to notice how the second hand on the wall clock jumps from one mark to the next. With great effort, you start to count your own heartbeats, feeling them pound unusually loudly. You notice the cough of a person in the distance, the almost imperceptible movement of light across the floor. Your brain is examining and deconstructing every minute, every second, with an almost microscopic focus. And when you magnify a single second, it naturally appears incredibly long. It's an exquisitely detailed, but for that reason, an excruciatingly eternal experience. Now, let's contrast this with a very different mental state: flow. Flow is a wonderful concept proposed by the psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. It refers to a mental state in which you are so completely immersed in what you are doing that you forget time, yourself, and everything around you. An artist, splashing paint on a canvas, might enter a state of flow. A programmer, writing an elegant and complex piece of code, might enter flow. A mountaineer, focusing on every handhold and every breath while climbing, might also enter flow. Even when you're playing a well-designed video game, you can often experience this state. In those moments of flow, you and your task become one. All your cognitive resources are highly concentrated on the matter at hand. You don't have a single spare bit of attention to allocate to the task of monitoring time. And so, a magical paradox occurs: your sense of time can almost completely disappear. Hours pass, but you are unaware. Your body might feel tired, your stomach might be growling, but your subjective feeling might just be that a little while has passed. You weren't counting minutes. You weren't measuring anything. Your attention was completely absorbed by the task itself, by the process of creating and problem-solving. And so, paradoxically, when you are most alive, most efficient, most creative, time, the ruler we normally rely on to live, simply vanishes. Another important factor, which we have mentioned before, is novelty. Our brain is naturally drawn to new things. When it processes familiar, repetitive information, it activates an energy-saving mode. It calls upon past experiences to handle things automatically. This process is fast, efficient, but also not very mindful. But when you experience something completely new, for example, the first time you travel alone to a foreign country where they speak a language you don't understand and have architecture and food you've never seen before, at that moment, your brain is instantly awakened. It shuts down the energy-saving mode and enters a state of high alert, a full-speed mode of information gathering. Your eyes greedily record every unfamiliar face, every strange sign. Your ears strive to distinguish new sounds and intonations. Your nose tries to capture the unique mixture of smells in the city's air. Your entire sensory system is working in overdrive, creating a dense, layered, and detail-rich new set of memories. Therefore, when you finish this trip, which might have been only a week long, and return home, looking back on the experience, you will feel that it was incredibly long and full, because when your brain replays this memory, it has so much high-quality footage to process, that 1 week might feel longer than a month you spent working in a routine-filled job. This is why many people feel that time accelerates as we age. When you are a child, almost everything is new. Your brain is frantically creating files for the world. But as you become an adult and life settles into fixed routines, new experiences become rarer. We start to live by experience, rather than experiencing. As a result, the brain forms fewer new, profound memories. Days begin to stack up like identical blank sheets of paper. Memory becomes sparse. And so, in our retrospective view, time seems to accelerate unstoppably. Our emotional state also plays a crucial role in this funhouse mirror of time. Fear and anxiety, as we've noted, can make time feel painfully slow. When you are in danger, such as in the instant of a car crash, many people report that everything feels like it's in slow motion. Every detail of the car rushing toward you is crystal clear. The shattering glass seems to be dancing a ballet in the air. This is not because time has actually slowed down, but because your brain, in a state of extreme stress and fear, is frantically and at an incredibly high speed, gathering and processing information in order to survive, creating the illusion of a slower passage of time. Conversely, when we feel relaxed, safe, and happy, the brain's operating mode is completely different. It is no longer obsessively, vigilantly scanning and counting. It is flowing. This is why time spent with family and friends, filled with laughter, always seems so short. Joy dissolves the boundaries of time, and peace erases its sharp edges. And then, there is trauma. For many who have experienced profound traumatic events, the behavior of time is almost surreal. Those critical, heartbreaking moments not only feel stretched out as they are happening, but they also become frozen in memory. Unlike other ordinary memories, they do not fade, become blurry, and get integrated into the overall narrative of our lives as time passes. Traumatic memories are often stored in a raw, vivid, and fragmented way in our brain's amygdala. They are not tagged with a clear label of past. Therefore, when certain cues, a sound, a smell, a scene trigger this memory, the survivor often feels as if they are re-experiencing the event. Rather than remembering it, they feel the same intense fear and helplessness as they did at the time. For them, that traumatic memory is living outside of time, an eternal, unhealed now. So, you see, to what great extent our experience of time depends on how our brain is feeling, rather than how the universe is moving. To your brain, time is not a set of cold numbers ticking forward on an axis. It is a story that is woven and told by your attention, your memories, and your emotions, all together. And like all stories, its rhythm can be told slowly or quickly, with rich detail or in broad strokes. And you are both the one experiencing this story, and also the sole narrator, holding the rhythm of time in your hands. The time within us is a river of feeling. Sometimes it rushes, sometimes it flows gently, its speed determined by our emotions, our memories, and the stage of our lives, ever-changing and deeply personal. But for now, we must temporarily leave this warm, subjective river. I invite you to lift your consciousness, like a seagull circling high above that river. Slowly, ascending, higher and higher you rise, through the clouds, through the atmosphere, into the cold, silent, star-studded expanse of outer space, we are going to turn our gaze toward the vaster, more objective, and therefore, even more bizarre, cosmic ocean. The realm we are about to enter is the core sanctuary of modern physics. Here, we will come face to face with one of the greatest revolutions in the history of thought, one that, in the early 20th century, completely overturned millennia of fundamental human common sense. Before we proceed, to better understand the subversive nature of this revolution, please allow me to first paint for you a picture of an ancient universe, a picture we have long grown accustomed to without even realizing it. Before the early 20th century, almost all scientists and philosophers, without a doubt, lived in a stable and orderly universe meticulously constructed by the unparalleled genius of the great Isaac Newton. In Newton's universe, space was an absolute, three-dimensional, eternal, and unchanging giant, empty box. It was the silent stage upon which all the dramas of the universe unfolded, and time was an absolute, uniformly flowing river. Independent of this spatial stage, it was like an eternal, invisible, supreme deity, with its omnipresent, unwavering beat. It governed the entire operation of the universe with perfect precision, whether you were lying still in your comfortable bed on Earth, or traveling at high speed in a futuristic spaceship through the cosmos, whether you were at the summit of Mount Everest, or at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. This river of time flowed for you, for me, and for every tiny speck of dust in the distant Andromeda galaxy. At the exact same, impartial speed, time was the ultimate background of the universe, the unchanging ruler against which all motion and change were measured. This concept was so intuitive, so consistent with our daily experience, that it had become a truth almost as self-evident as an axiom, deeply engraved in the collective consciousness of humanity. And then a person appeared, a young clerk, at that time working quietly in the patent office in Bern, Switzerland, examining the inventions of others. He had a signature mop of fluffy, messy hair that seemed impossible to comb, and a pair of eyes that were both profound and tinged with a childlike wonder, eyes that seemed to see through the veneer of everyday life, directly into the underlying mechanics of the world. His name was Albert Einstein. In 1905, a year later revered by physicists as the Annus Mirabilis, or Miracle Year, the 26-year-old Einstein published a series of world-shaking papers. Among them, in his famous paper on the electrodynamics of moving bodies, he proposed a revolutionary new theory, special relativity, with just a simple, yet incredibly profound and beautiful postulates: the principle of the constancy of the speed of light and the principle of relativity. Einstein, with his own hands, gently dismantled the magnificent spatio-temporal edifice built by Newton, which had dominated human thought for nearly 300 years. He declared to the world, with irrefutable mathematics and logic, that the river of time, which we had regarded as an absolute truth, was, in fact, an illusion. It did not exist. In Einstein's new cosmic picture, space and time are no longer two independent concepts, existing separately from each other. They are woven together in an unprecedented, deeply intrinsic, and inseparable way. They form a unified, four-dimensional continuum. Einstein, or more accurately, his mathematics professor Hermann Minkowski, gave this four-dimensional entity a beautiful and mysterious name of spacetime. You can imagine it no longer as a rigid, unchanging, Cartesian three-dimensional stage. Instead, picture it as a gigantic, elastic, endlessly stretching and compressible rubber fabric, and everything in our universe, from you and me, to the planets, photons of light, is moving, existing, and interacting on this vast fabric of spacetime, leaving behind its own unique trajectory. And it is here that things begin to get truly, dizzyingly strange. According to Einstein's theory, time is no longer a universal, absolute monarch. The speed at which it flows is relative. The faster an object moves in the dimension of space, the slower it must necessarily move in the dimension of time. I invite you right now. Not to try to understand the mathematics, but just to use your intuition, to carefully, slowly, feel the weight of this statement. What it describes is not a poetic metaphor, not a philosophical fancy. It is a cold, hard, yet incredibly magical physical fact that can be precisely calculated by math, and has been repeatedly verified by countless high-precision experiments of our era. This effect is what scientists call time dilation, or more colloquially, the slowing of clocks. To better understand this somewhat counterintuitive concept, let us conduct a very famous thought experiment. A paradox about a pair of twin sisters. Imagine a pair of young, identical twin sisters. Let's call them Stella and Luna. Stella is a person who loves a quiet life. She chooses to spend her entire life on Earth, living the familiar rhythm of sunrise and sunset. Her sister, Luna, however, has been an adventurous spirit since childhood. At the age of 20, Luna is selected to board the most advanced spaceship ever built by humankind, capable of traveling at the incredible speed of 99% the speed of light for a long-haul interstellar journey. Before her departure, Luna shares a heartfelt embrace with her sister Stella. Then, she boards the spaceship and begins her adventure. Her clock on the spaceship and Stella's clock on Earth were calibrated to be perfectly synchronized by the world's top scientists before she left. Luna travels at high speed through space for exactly 5 years measured by the clock on her ship. During these 5 years, she witnesses magnificent nebulae beyond description and visits many strange planets that might harbor exotic life. Then, at the age of 25, she turns her ship around and, at the same near-light speed, returns to her blue home. When her spaceship lands smoothly at the landing site on Earth, and the hatch opens with a hiss, a shocking, even somewhat sad, scene unfolds. Her sister Stella, who has come to greet her, is no longer the young woman she remembers. She is now a 70-year-old woman, with white hair and a face full of wrinkles. But when Luna steps out of the hatch, she is still the vibrant 25-year-old young woman, her age perfectly matching the time she spent on her journey. During the 5 years of Luna's high-speed travel, a full 50 years have quietly passed on Earth. Why? Why would such a bizarre thing happen? Did Luna's clock malfunction in the harsh environment of space? No. Was Stella's time on Earth accelerated by some mysterious force? Number. Either. From their own local frames of reference, their sense of time, their clocks, both flowed perfectly normally. Luna indeed experienced 5 years, and Stella indeed experienced 50 years. And the paradoxical point of special relativity, which is also its most profound insight, is that both of them are correct. Because, from the perspective of the universe, the ultimate, absolutely fair referee, space and time are two different sides of the same fabric of spacetime. They share a finite speed, the speed of light. When Luna allocated almost all of her speed to the dimension of space, letting her ship race across this fabric, she necessarily had very little speed left to be allocated to the dimension of time, and so, her time moved extremely slowly. She traded a mere 5 years of her life for 50 years of Earth's passing. This might still sound like a brilliant piece of science fiction, right? But it has long since ceased to be fiction. The Global Positioning System GPS, which we modern humans rely on every day, is the most solid, everyday proof of this theory. The GPS navigation satellites orbiting the Earth at high speed have extremely precise atomic clocks on board. Due to their high velocity, every day, their clocks run a tiny bit slower than our clocks on the ground, about 7 microseconds, 7 millionths of a second slower. This difference sounds minuscule, almost negligible, but if our engineers did not continuously, and with nanosecond precision, correct for this time difference predicted by special relativity in the global GPS computational system, then, over time, the positioning error of GPS would accumulate catastrophically, reaching more than 10 kilometers per day. This means that, without Einstein, the map app on your phone would direct you to the wrong city entirely. and the food you ordered for delivery would end up several blocks away. Every time you are able to rely on navigation to precisely find that little coffee shop you've been wanting to try, tucked away in a deep city alley, you are, in fact, paying a silent, sincere tribute to Einstein's revolutionary, bent theory of spacetime. But Einstein's revolution did not stop there. Special relativity only dealt with the case of uniform motion, but our universe is full of acceleration, deceleration, and a much more mysterious, more ubiquitous force, gravity. So, after another 10 years of arduous thought, in 1915, Einstein published his greatest masterpiece, General Relativity. This time, he completely overturned our understanding of gravity as well. In Newton's universe, gravity was a mysterious, action at a distance force of attraction between two massive objects. For example, the reason the sun can hold on to the Earth and prevent it from flying away is that there is an invisible, instantaneously acting gravitational force between them. But in Einstein's view, there is no such thing as a mysterious force of gravity. What we call gravity is merely a geometric effect produced by the curvature of the fabric of spacetime itself. Let's return to the rubber fabric analogy. Imagine you place a very heavy bowling ball on this flat rubber fabric. The immense mass of the bowling ball will immediately cause the fabric around it to dip downwards, forming a gravity well, or a spacetime indentation. Now, if you gently roll a small glass marble past it, you will find that the marble no longer travels in a straight line. It will follow the curve of that indentation, rolling down towards the bowling ball. From a distance, it looks as if the bowling ball has some mysterious power that is attracting the marble. But in reality, the marble is simply moving along the most natural, most effortless path on that already curved fabric of spacetime. The Earth orbits the Sun not because the Sun has an invisible string pulling it. It is because the Sun's immense mass has pressed a huge dent into the four-dimensional fabric of spacetime around it. And the Earth, this little marble, is simply, eternally, rolling along the edge of this massive spacetime indentation, circle after circle. This is an orbit. This is the truth of gravity. And the most profound, most breathtaking implication of general relativity is that not only is space curved, but time is also curved. In a place where gravity is stronger, which is to say, in a place where that spacetime indentation is deeper, the speed at which time flows is slower. This is what is known as gravitational time dilation. This means that a person living at the peak of a high mountain, because they are farther from the center of Earth's immense mass, and the spacetime fabric at their location is flatter, their time will flow a minuscule fraction faster than that of a person living at sea level. This difference is extremely small, perhaps accumulating to less than a second over your entire lifetime, but it is real, and it can be clearly measured by our most precise atomic clocks today. Your head is, indeed, aging a tiny bit faster than your feet, and when we extrapolate this effect to the most extreme gravitational environments in the universe, black holes, the distortion of time becomes incredibly dramatic, even terrifying. After a massive star dies, it may collapse into a point of infinite density and zero volume, which we call a singularity. The powerful gravity around this singularity tears an infinitely deep hole in the fabric of spacetime. Around this hole, there is an invisible boundary called the event horizon. Once anything, including light, crosses this boundary, it can never escape. If you were unfortunate enough to fall into this black hole, the moment you cross the event horizon, your sense of time might still feel normal to you, but to a distant, safe observer, your image would appear to slow down, become redder, and eventually, would freeze like a photograph, eternally, at that boundary, until the end of the universe. Your now would be stretched into an eternity in their time. So, let us pause here, for a moment. Let these concepts, which sound somewhat incredible, slowly settle in your mind. Time is not a rigid, cold, eternally ticking ruler. It is a soft, elastic, and malleable fabric. It will slow down for you because of your high-speed motion. It will freeze for you because you are in a strong gravitational field. This means that in this universe, there is no single, unique now that is shared by everyone. Your now, my now, and the now on a distant neutron star are three completely different nows. Time has transformed from a universal, absolute concept into a local, relative, and personal phenomenon. Einstein, this gentle, peace-loving physicist, with his incomparably profound thoughts, brought time down from its divine pedestal. He told us that time is no longer a high and mighty master, but rather the most wondrous, most ever-changing dance partner in this universe, with whom we dance. And in our next chapter, we will explore an even more baffling, even slightly unsettling implication if time can be bent. If the past, present, and future are all just different locations on this giant fabric, does that mean our future is, in fact, already written? In the last chapter of our journey, we delve together into the awe-inspiring and dizzying universe of Albert Einstein. There, time was no longer a constant, universal background, but a soft fabric that could be bent and twisted by speed and gravity. This discovery, in itself, is enough to overturn our worldview. However, while relativity tells us how time can be stretched or compressed, it does not answer a more fundamental question, one that is much closer to our daily experience. That question is, why? Why does time seem to always, and only, flow in one direction? We can all, effortlessly and clearly, recall the events of yesterday. You might remember what you had for breakfast yesterday, whom you spoke with on the phone, or whether the weather outside was sunny or rainy. Yet, no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you concentrate your mental powers, you can absolutely not remember what will happen tomorrow. Tomorrow, for us, is a land shrouded in thick fog, a land full of possibilities, yet unknown. Our lives are like an arrow that has been shot. It always flies from a known point, called the past, toward an unknown bullseye called the future. We cannot make this arrow turn around, much less make it fly from the bullseye back to the bowstring. This one-way nature of time, this irreversible characteristic of flowing from the past to the future, is so deeply ingrained, so utterly natural, that we rarely pause to think about the reasons behind it. Physicists have given this phenomenon a very descriptive name, the arrow of time. The strange thing is, when we delve into the most microscopic level of the physical world, observing the fundamental physical laws that govern the interactions of particles, atoms, and various forces such as Newton's laws of motion or Maxwell's equations of electromagnetism, we are surprised to find that most of these laws themselves are time-symmetric. What does this mean? It means that if you record a video of two billiard balls colliding, and then you play this video in reverse, you will find that the reversed footage looks perfectly plausible. The two balls bounce off each other from the point of impact and return to their original positions. The entire process does not violate any physical laws in the slightest. Gravity still works. Momentum is still conserved. From a physics perspective, the forward and backward processes are completely equal. In that microscopic, purely physical world, there doesn't seem to be an arrow of time pointing in a specific direction. Time could go forward, or it could go backward, and the laws of physics would not fail because of it. However, when we pull our focus back from the microscopic billiard balls to the macroscopic world we live in, the situation is completely different. I invite you to imagine, in your mind, a kitchen in the early morning. On the table, there is a perfect, white, unbroken egg. Now, your hand accidentally touches it, the egg rolls off the table, falls to the floor, and with a crack, shatters into pieces. The egg white and yolk mix together, spreading out into an irretrievable, chaotic puddle. This is an all too familiar scene, isn't it? But have you ever seen the puddle of broken egg liquid and shell on the floor begin to writhe, gather together, reassemble into a perfect, smooth egg, and then jump back onto the table by itself? Of course not. Such a thing never happens. Now, imagine a cup of freshly brewed coffee, piping hot, exuding a rich aroma. You place it on the table in your room and leave for a while. When you come back a few tens of minutes later, the coffee has become lukewarm, or even a bit cool. Its heat has quietly dissipated into the cooler surrounding air, until it reaches a state of equilibrium with the temperature of the entire room. This process is also one way. You will never see a cup of cool coffee spontaneously absorb heat from the surrounding air and become piping hot again. Whether it's a shattered egg, a cooling cup of coffee, or our own aging faces and fading youth, all these phenomena in the macroscopic world are showing us, in a silent and stubborn way, the unwavering arrow of time. It points in only one direction, from order to disorder, from concentration to dispersion, from a special state to a general state. So, here is the question. If the underlying physical laws are time-symmetric, where does this omnipresent arrow of time in the macroscopic world come from? The answer, it seems, is not hidden in the behavior of a single particle, but in a very quiet, very cunning, yet incredibly powerful statistical concept. This concept is called entropy. Entropy. The word might sound scientific and abstract, but its core idea is actually very simple. Entropy is a measure of the degree of chaos or disorder in a system. Let's use a more relatable analogy. Imagine your study, when all the books are neatly arranged on the shelf in alphabetical order. All the documents are sorted into their corresponding folders, and the floor is spotless at this moment. Your study is in a low entropy state. It is very orderly and neat. Now, a mischievous kitten you own dashes into your study and begins a campaign of destruction. It pushes books off the shelves, scatters documents all over the floor, and knocks over the wastepaper basket. A few minutes later, your study is a complete mess. Books and papers are piled up haphazardly. At this moment, your study is in a high entropy state. It is very disorderly and chaotic. From order to disorder, entropy has increased, and this is one of the most fundamental, and perhaps most frustrating, laws of the universe, the second law of thermodynamics. This law tells us that, in an isolated, closed system, such as the entire universe, the total entropy will almost always increase over time. The system will spontaneously move from an orderly state of low entropy to a disorderly state of high entropy. Why does this happen? Is it because the universe itself has some malicious intent that favors chaos? The reason is actually very, very simple, based purely on probability, because the number of ways a system can be in a disordered state is far, far, far greater than the number of ways it can be in an ordered state. Let's return to the study. For your books to be perfectly ordered, there might be only one way, or a very few ways. This is an extremely special, low probability state. However, for your books to be in a messy state, there are countless, billions of possible ways. This book can be on the floor. That book can be on the chair. Any random arrangement is a state of disorder. So, disorder is an extremely general, high probability state. Therefore, when you randomly change the state of the system, like letting the kitten in to wreak havoc, or just tossing things around yourself, there is an extremely high probability that it will go from that single, ordered state to any one of those billions of disordered states. Conversely, for it to go from billions of disordered states back to that single, unique ordered state, just by random chance, the probability is so small it's practically negligible. This is the principle of entropy increase. This is the origin of the arrow of time. The reason we can clearly distinguish between the past and the future, the reason we feel time is flowing in one direction, is because the universe we inhabit happens to have a past with extremely low entropy, a state of extraordinary order, and the future, inevitably, is an extension of the present, a state with higher entropy, a state that is more chaotic. The arrow of time that we feel is actually the universe's overall arrow of entropy increase. This grand process from order to disorder is interpreted by our brains as the passage of time. But this explanation, as elegant as it is, immediately gives rise to an even deeper, more perplexing ultimate mystery of cosmology. since the universe inevitably trends towards a high-entropy state of increasing chaos. Then, why was our universe, at its very beginning, at the moment of the Big Bang about 13.8 billion years ago, in a state of such incredibly low entropy, a state so special and highly ordered? It's as if, at the dawn of the universe, you discovered a gigantic library that had already been perfectly categorized and organized, and all of cosmic history since then is just the process of this library, inevitably, bit by bit, descending into chaos. This question of the initial low entropy of the universe is one of the central mysteries of modern cosmology, and there is no definitive answer to this day. Some scientists believe it might just be an incredible, purely statistical coincidence that we were lucky enough to be born in a universe with extremely low probability. Others believe there may be deeper laws of physics, yet unknown to us, and it is these laws that set the initial low entropy condition of the universe, thereby launching the arrow of time that we experience today. There are even bolder, purely speculative ideas. For example, some physicists have proposed that our universe might be just one bubble in a larger multiverse, and on the other side of the Big Bang event, there might exist a mirror universe. In that universe, the arrow of time is reversed, and entropy is decreasing. The inhabitants there might be able to remember their future, but would be completely ignorant of their past, and be puzzled by it. Of course, these are distant speculations. Let's return to ourselves, to our lives. In a universe where entropy is always increasing, life appears as an incredible miracle. You see, a non-living object, like a rock, will, over time, be weathered and eroded, gradually changing from an ordered structure with a defined shape into a disordered pile of sand. This is a typical entropy increasing process. But life is quite the opposite. A tiny, invisible seed will actively and energetically absorb energy and matter from its surroundings, sunlight, water, soil, and then use that energy to fight against the tide of entropy increase. It will grow roots, a stem, and leaves, produce complex and beautifully structured flowers, and finally bear fruit containing highly ordered genetic information. Life is like a group of brave swimmers, struggling upstream against the rushing river of cosmic entropy, which flows inexorably towards chaos. Within their own local, small systems, they use all their might to create and maintain a low entropy, highly ordered state. Of course, life has not, and cannot, violate the second law of thermodynamics. This miracle comes at a price. When a living organism maintains and develops the order of its own small system, it inevitably increases the disorder of the larger system around it at an even faster rate. For example, a plant creates order through photosynthesis, but it releases more waste heat, increasing the total entropy of the universe. We humans maintain the complex system of our bodies by eating, but our metabolic processes, and the waste we eventually expel, also greatly increase the entropy of the environment. We, and all living things, are like children in a giant room that is destined to get messier and messier, each of us trying desperately to keep our own little corner, called the body, neat and tidy. We create local, temporary islands of order, but this does nothing to stop the entire room from heading towards its inevitable, silent, chaotic end. And this, perhaps, is precisely why life is so precious, so full of poetry, because we know that the shattered egg will not reassemble itself, the cold coffee will not reheat itself, the person we have hurt, the time that has passed, cannot return to their initial state. Time has only this one direction, and we, riding on this arrow called entropy, are carried irreversibly forward. We remember all the joys and sorrows of yesterday. We feel all the existence and breath of this very moment, and we look forward to all the unknown possibilities and hopes of tomorrow. This one-way, irreversible journey sometimes brings regret and nostalgic sadness, but it also, equally, gives meaning to our ability to change, to grow, and to create. It is precisely because we cannot go back that every choice we make becomes so important. It is precisely because we are passing away that every moment we are alive becomes so sacred. Our journey, so far, has been a pursuit of time's traces across different scales. We've witnessed the irreversible arrow of time in the macroscopic universe. Driven by entropy, we've also felt how time, under the immense hand of gravity, can be kneaded and stretched like dough. But now, we are about to undertake the ultimate descent. Imagine, if you will, that we are aboard a submarine of consciousness, passing through the solid, reliable material world of our daily lives, through the clamor of molecules, through the orbits of atoms, sinking ever deeper into a realm that is smaller, more profound, and, so bizarre it borders on madness, we are about to arrive at the very bottom layer of reality, the final frontier of physics. Welcome to the quantum realm. Here, all the familiar, common sense rules you know from the macroscopic world will begin to disintegrate. Here, a single particle can pass through two slits at once, as if it has a phantom double. Here, an object can exist in a superposition of both being and not being at the same time, only deciding to give you a definite answer the moment you look at it. Here, causality becomes fuzzy, and reality itself seems to be nothing more than a hazy cloud of probabilities. And our main character of interest, time in this phantasmagorical, ghostly quantum world, meets the most peculiar fate of all. It is very likely that it doesn't exist at all. Let's start with an unsettling fact. In the world of classical physics, whether it's Newtonian mechanics or Einstein's relativity, the variable t for time is an indispensable, honored guest, appearing in almost all the core equations. Time is the solid stage upon which all stories are allowed to unfold. However, when physicists try to combine Einstein's general relativity, which describes macroscopic gravity, with quantum mechanics, which describes microscopic particles, the two great pillars of modern physics, to construct an ultimate theory of everything, an extremely awkward and profound problem arises. In the most cutting-edge attempts to unify these two theories, such as string theory and loop quantum gravity, when scientists write down the most central, most fundamental master equations that describe the entire universe as a single quantum system, they discover, to their horror, that the familiar variable t, the letter representing time, has mysteriously, completely, vanished. For example, in loop quantum gravity theory, there is a very famous equation known as the Wheeler-DeWitt equation. It is considered a candidate for describing the quantum state of the entire universe, and the most prominent, most baffling feature of this equation is that it contains no time variable whatsoever. From the perspective of this equation, the entire universe from the Big Bang to the distant future, all of past, present, and future is viewed as a single, static, eternally existing, giant quantum wave function. It simply is. It does not flow. The universe is a frozen, motionless whole. There is no such thing as the passage of time. How can this be possible? We clearly feel the flow of time every single moment. This is precisely the most profound philosophical shock that these theories deliver. Many physicists who support these theories, such as the aforementioned, most poetic Italian theoretical physicist, Carlo Rovelli, have proposed a bold yet beautiful explanation. He believes that time is not a fundamental component of our universe at all. At the deepest level of reality, there is nothing called time. The rushing river of time that we perceive is very likely just a phenomenon that has emerged. Emergence is a very important concept. It refers to a new property that manifests at the macroscopic level of a system, but is completely absent at the microscopic level. Let me give you a simple example. Consider the wetness or fluidity of water. If you take a single H2O molecule, you will find that it, by itself, is neither wet nor has any fluidity. It is just a small geometric structure composed of two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom. However, when you gather trillions of such water molecules together, due to the complex electromagnetic interactions between them, this collective of countless water molecules emerges with a brand new, macroscopic property that of wetness and fluidity. Similarly, the temperature of air. No single air molecule has a temperature of its own. Temperature is just our macroscopic, statistical description of the average kinetic energy of trillions of air molecules. So, Rovelli and many other physicists speculate that the time we perceive might be just like that. At the most fundamental, quantum level of the universe, there may only be countless quantum events, constantly occurring and interacting. There is no before or after, only a vast, intricate, interconnected network of events, and time is what we macroscopic, conscious beings made of trillions of particles perceive when we observe this vast network, due to our own limitations, due to our need to process information in a linear, causal manner. We emerge an illusion, or rather, a perspective, from this timeless network. It's like listening to a symphony. On a physical level, a symphony is just a collection of physical events, a series of air pressure waves of different frequencies at different points in time. By itself, it has no melody or emotion. But when our brain, this magical processor, receives these sound waves, it automatically connects and organizes these separate notes in our consciousness, giving them structure, pattern, and relationship, and thus, a beautiful melody, an emotion of sadness or joy, emerges. Rovelli says that the universe itself probably doesn't tick like a clock. It's more like it's humming, dancing, swirling, and entangling, and the thing we call time might just be the familiar melody we think we hear when we listen to this quantum dance with our macroscopic, slow-moving ears. This idea is so profound that it can make one feel a bit dizzy and unsettled. If time is truly not fundamental to the universe, but just a macroscopic illusion, then where do we place the most important things in our lives? Our memories, our growth, our love and loss, our choices and consequences, if the most fundamental reality is a timeless, eternal now? Are all these things just part of an elaborate, insubstantial play? However, in the quantum world, there is another, even more famous and more spooky, phenomenon, that also seems to be hinting, in its own unique way, at a deeper reality that transcends our everyday conception of time. This phenomenon is quantum entanglement. This is a phenomenon that Einstein himself found deeply perplexing, calling it spooky action at a distance. You can generate a pair of special, interconnected entangled particles, like photons. Then, you can separate these two photons by a very, very great distance. For example, one is kept on Earth, and the other is sent to the Moon. The strange part, confirmed by quantum mechanical predictions and countless experiments, is that these two distant photons seem to possess a kind of telepathy. When you measure a certain property of the photon on Earth, for example, its spin direction, the corresponding property of the photon on the Moon will, at the exact same instant note, instantaneously, be determined, exhibiting a definite, correlated state with the photon on Earth. This instantaneous correlation seems to completely disregard the strictest speed limit in the universe, the speed of light. Information appears to be transmitted between these two entangled particles at a speed that is faster than light, perhaps even infinite. This seriously challenges Einstein's theory of relativity and our conception of time based on causality, because if a signal can be transmitted instantly, then from certain frames of reference, this signal could be seen as traveling backward in time, from the future to the past, in a causal reversal. So, what is this ghost of quantum entanglement telling us? Some of the boldest physicists have proposed an even more revolutionary idea. They think we might have been looking at it all wrong. We've always assumed that space and time are the pre-existing, empty stage, and quantum entanglement is the strange drama that unfolds upon this stage. But what if the situation is exactly the reverse? What if quantum entanglement, this invisible, ghostly connection between particles, is the most fundamental reality of the universe? And what if the familiar, three-dimensional space, and even the flowing time itself, are merely macroscopic illusions that emerge from the vast, omnipresent, giant web of entanglement among all the particles in the universe. In other words, it's not that particles can be entangled because they exist in space. Rather, it's because the most fundamental entanglement relationships exist between particles that the concept we perceive as spatial distance is created. This is an extremely cutting-edge and difficult idea to grasp. It suggests that, at the deepest level of reality, there may not be a place or a moment. There is only an abstract, quantum network, full of pure relationships and information. And we, these macroscopic beings made of these quantum bits, are like characters living in this giant network game. The space and time we experience are just the user interface, rendered by the game, so that we can understand and interact with it. So, what does this idea ultimately leave us with? It leaves us with a deeper, more tranquil, and more awe-inspiring mystery. It tells us that perhaps our feeling of time, that sense of ticking urgency, that anxiety of its constant, irreversible flow, might just be a built-in feature of our user interface. It is not the truth of the universe. So now, as you lie here quietly, with your eyes closed, feeling yourself slowly, melting into the stillness and darkness of this moment, I invite you to try something in your imagination. Try to let go of the clock that is ticking in your mind. Try to imagine that you are not a traveler floating down the river of time, but rather that you, yourself, are the river. Number. You are not even the river. You are every single, eternally existing water droplet that makes up that river. These droplets are interconnected, interacting. They dance, they collide, and they entangle, thereby creating the river called life that appears to be flowing. Perhaps, at the deepest level of reality, nothing is truly passing away. Everything simply is. Here, in this moment, in an eternal, quantum, ghostly, now. Our submarine of consciousness has just slowly ascended from that deep, bizarre, and perhaps even timeless quantum ocean. The solid feel of reality seems to have returned to our perception. Now, I invite you to let your imaginations spread its wings once again, but this time, we do not descend. Instead, we fly upwards, infinitely upwards. We fly past the room we are in, past the city we inhabit, past the thin, azure layer of atmosphere that envelops our Earth. We enter the vast, cold, yet magnificent expanse of deep space. Here, time, this concept so familiar to us, will once again reveal its wildest, most untamed, and most awe-inspiring side, in ways we can hardly imagine. On the stage of the cosmos, time is not a stern tyrant, but rather a skilled, eccentric magician, performing different temporal tricks in different corners. Let's begin with the origin of time, or rather, the origin of time as we can understand it. Today, the vast majority of cosmologists believe that our universe was born about 13.8 billion years ago in a Big Bang. Please do not imagine the Big Bang as a firework-like explosion happening somewhere, because it did not happen in a pre-existing, empty space. At the moment of the Big Bang, space, time, matter, and energy, all the components of the universe were created simultaneously. They were all squeezed into a singularity of infinite density, infinite temperature, and infinitesimal volume. Then, this singularity exploded, or to use a more accurate word, it expanded. It began to expand outwards at a speed beyond our imagination. And in this process, it cooled, evolved, and eventually formed the vast universe full of stars and galaxies that we see today. Therefore, to talk about what happened before the Big Bang is likely a meaningless question from a physics perspective, because if time itself was also created at that moment, then there is no such thing as before. Asking this question is like standing at the North Pole of the Earth and stubbornly asking, what's further north? That direction simply does not exist in your coordinate system. Time, at least the time of our universe, was very likely born in that creative, fiery flame, along with the very first ray of light. From that moment on, the universe has been continuously expanding, and it is still expanding today. And it is precisely this expansion of the universe that grants us an extraordinary ability to become time travelers. Here's how it works. We can see objects because the light they emit, or the light they reflect, enters our eyes, and light, although it's the fastest thing in our universe, still has a finite speed. So, when you look up at the night sky and see a twinkling star, what you are seeing is not what that star looks like now. You are seeing what it looked like in the past, because the light from that star has taken a long time to travel across the vastness of space to finally reach your retina. If a star is 10 light years away from us, then what you see tonight is the light it emitted 10 years ago, when that beam of light left the star and began its journey. You might have still been in elementary school. If a star is 500 light years away, then the light you see was emitted 500 years ago, when the Ming dynasty still reigned in China, and when we use more powerful telescopes to gaze at even more distant galaxies, we embark on an even more magnificent journey through time. The Andromeda galaxy we see, the closest large spiral galaxy to our Milky Way, is seen as it was 5 million years ago, when it emitted that beam of light. The human species had not even yet appeared on Earth, and when we employ powerful instruments like the Hubble Space Telescope, or the James Webb Space Telescope to peer into the farthest depths of the universe, we are actually looking back at the universe's infancy. We can see how the first generation of stars were formed billions of years ago, how the earliest galaxies gathered in the chaos. In this sense, our night sky is not just a spatial tapestry, it is an epic of time. Every star, every galaxy, is like a word, a sentence, in this grand epic, each existing at a different point in time. Our telescopes are veritable time machines. The farther we look, the more distant a past we return to. However, this temporal magic brought by the expansion of the universe has an even more peculiar side. In the late 20th century, by observing distant supernovae, astronomers were astonished to discover that the expansion of the universe is not slowing down due to gravity. Instead, it is accelerating. It's as if you threw an apple upwards, and instead of falling back down, it flew towards the sky at an ever-increasing speed. Behind this, there must be a mysterious, anti-gravitational force at play, pushing the universe to tear itself apart. Scientists have given this mysterious force a name full of a sense of the unknown, dark energy. To this day, we do not know what dark energy is, but we know that it makes up nearly 70% of the total mass energy of our universe, and it is its existence that will determine the distant, ultimate fate of time in our cosmos. Because the universe is accelerating in its expansion, it means that the extremely distant galaxies at the edge of the universe are receding from us at speeds faster than the speed of light. Note: this does not violate Einstein's theory, because it is not the galaxies themselves that are flying through space faster than light, but the space between them and us that is being stretched at a superluminal speed. This will lead to a somewhat sad and lonely consequence. As time goes on, more and more galaxies that were once visible will recede beyond our cosmic horizon. Their images will become redder and dimmer, and eventually, they will completely disappear from our view, not because they were destroyed, but because the space they occupy is moving away from us faster than light can travel. So the light they emit will never, ever be able to catch up to us again. In the extremely distant future, trillions of years from now, an astronomer living in the Milky Way, when they look up at the sky, might only see a vast, eternal, and desperate darkness. Apart from a few galaxies gravitationally bound within our local group, all the other billions of once brilliant galaxies will be forever gone, disappeared beyond the edge of spacetime, becoming unobservable, unreachable. Our universe will become incredibly empty and lonely. And time, in this unimaginably long twilight of the universe, will perform its final and grandest act, according to our current understanding. In the even more distant future, All stars will burn out their fuel, becoming cold white dwarfs, neutron stars, or black holes. After that, even the protons that make up matter may decay and disintegrate. The universe will be left with nothing but sparse elementary particles and radiation, drifting aimlessly in a space so vast it's hard to imagine. Eventually, even the most gluttonous beasts in the universe, black holes, will, through a process called Hawking radiation, extremely slowly, extremely slowly, evaporate themselves, returning all the matter and energy they devoured back to the universe in the form of radiation. When the very last black hole has evaporated, our universe will reach its final destiny, a state known as heat death. That is a state of maximum entropy, a state of absolute uniformity and absolute nothingness. In that universe, the temperature is the same everywhere. There is no longer any flow of energy, no longer any difference in gradients. Therefore, no change can ever happen again. No star formation, no birth of life, no processing of information. Not even the simplest chemical reaction can proceed. And when in a universe, no change can ever happen again, the concept of time itself loses its entire reason for existence. Because, as the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle said, time, in the end, is just a measure of change. In that heat death, eternal, silent universe, time might truly stop. Not because it has been reversed, nor because it has been frozen, but because there are no longer any events to mark its passage, to serve as its scale. Time, the great magician who has threaded through hundreds of billions of years of cosmic history, will finally, at the end, perform his most amazing trick to make himself disappear, completely, without a trace. But, please do not feel too sad about this distant and cold ending, because we do not live at that endpoint. We are so incredibly lucky. We are living in a young, vibrant, and vigorously expanding and evolving universe. A universe filled with brilliant starlight, complex structures, and infinite possibilities and unknown wonders. We measure our own short and precious time with heartbeats and sunsets, with the changing of seasons and the passing of years. But when we occasionally lift our heads from the trifles of daily life to gaze at the deep, dark sky, we are, in fact, listening to the most ancient echoes from the deepest corners of the cosmos. Every twinkling star is like a messenger from the distant past, telling us a story about time, a story of how time was born, how it is bent, and how, eventually, it might end. We are products of time, shaped by time, limited by time, but at the same time, we are also the witnesses of time. We are the curious eyes that the universe uses to look back at its own history. We live within this flowing, changing, and spectacular river of cosmic time. It not only rushes forward, but also expands outward, wraps around immense sources of gravity, and in the end, may flow into a silent sea called eternity, which we can never reach. Our journey of consciousness has traversed exceptionally vast territories. We have dived into the profound sea of the quantum, where the very foundations of time seem to dissolve. We have also soared to the infinite peak of the cosmos, where time, like a great river, could be stretched at will by gravity. Physics, with its precise and powerful language, has painted for us a series of awesome, yet contradictory and unknown, pictures of time. But now, let us, for a moment, from those precise instruments, complex equations, and the spacetime measured in light years, slowly return. Let us return to a place more ancient, and closer to our souls, a realm that requires no telescopes or microscopes, but only a quiet, clear heart to enter. Welcome to the garden of philosophy. Long before humans invented the atomic clock, or even before the invention of writing, in the depths of our species' psyche, the confusion, fascination, and awe regarding time had already quietly sprouted. When the first ancient human gazed at his own hands, then at the tender face of his child, and finally at the withered, wrinkled elder of the tribe on the verge of passing, the most simple Yet most profound question about time had already been posed. What is it that changes us? Where does that invisible force come from? And where will it take us? While physicists relentlessly seek answers to how time works, philosophers throughout the millennia, with their deep and sometimes painful gaze, have constantly questioned what time and what it means. What they were searching for was not a formula to be written on a blackboard, but a kind of understanding and wisdom, in which we could situate our short, fleeting lives. Let us first visit that great theologian and philosopher of the 4th century, who posed the timeless question about time, St. Augustine. In his Confessions, Augustine, with a voice of immense sincerity, even with a hint of childlike bewilderment, wrote those immortal words, "What then is time? If no one asks me, I know. If I wish to explain it to one that asketh, I know not." This sentence, traversing nearly 1700 years of time, can still instantly strike a chord in each of our hearts, because it precisely captures that contradictory relationship we have with time, both intimate and distant. We live in time. We use time. We are products of time. Yet we cannot, with language, clearly define it. Augustine's reflections did not stop there. He continued, with his keen introspection, to analyze our experience of time. He noticed that what we call time seems to be composed of 3 parts that do not truly exist. The past, he said, no longer exists. It is merely a bygone, is no more, which cannot be retrieved. The future, too, does not yet exist. It is merely a yet to come, is not yet, full of uncertainty. So, what truly exists seems to be only the singular, fleeting present. But what is the present? If it has duration, then it must be divisible into a part that is past and a part that is future, in which case it does not exist in itself. If it has no duration, then it is just a sharp, widthless razor's edge between the past and the future, a ghostly moment that we can never truly grasp. And so, Augustine reached a revolutionary conclusion. Time, he said, is perhaps not something that exists objectively in the external world at all. It is, more likely, a purely subjective creation of our own minds. He divided what we call time into 3 dimensions belonging purely to the soul. The so-called past is merely the soul's memory. The so-called future is merely the soul's expectation. And the so-called present is merely the attention that the soul invests in this very moment. You see, what a profound insight this is. Time, in the eyes of this ancient sage, transformed from a physical property of the universe into a psychological structure of our consciousness. The passage of time might not be an objective process of the cosmos, but just the subjective feeling our soul generates as it swings back and forth between memory and expectation. Let us bid farewell to Augustine and travel forward more than 1,000 years, to 18th century Germany. Here, we meet another giant of thought, Immanuel Kant. Kant, a philosopher who never left his hometown and lived an exceptionally regular life, ignited a Copernican revolution in the realm of thought, in his difficult, yet monumentally important work, Critique of Pure Reason. He pushed Augustine's idea of time's subjectivity to a more thorough and systematic extreme. Kant argued that not only time, but also space, are not inherent properties of the external world, what he called the thing in itself. Instead, time and space are a pair of colored glasses that we, as a specific species of beings, must wear when we perceive the world. Glasses that can never be taken off. They are the 2 most fundamental a priori forms of intuition for all our possible experiences. This might sound a bit convoluted, but what it means is this: we can never know what the real world, independent of our senses, is truly like, because when we perceive and understand this world, our mind automatically places all the chaotic sensory data it receives into a preset framework called space, giving them position, shape, and distance. At the same time, it places all these experiences onto a conveyor belt called time, giving them an order of succession, duration, and causality. So, For Kant, time is not something we discover in the external world. It is more like our mind's built-in operating system. We do not live in time. Rather, we construct and understand our lives through time. We cannot step outside of time to see what a timeless world looks like. Just as a fish cannot leap out of water to see what a waterless world is like, water is the sole medium through which the fish can exist and perceive everything. And time is the sole medium through which we humans can construct our world of experience. Both of these ideas, whether Augustine's psychological time or Kant's a priori time, point to a common, unsettling conclusion that the time we experience may just be a grand inner drama, in which we ourselves are the actors, the directors, and the audience. And yet, even so, we cannot escape that heavy sense of being swept along by time, defined by our finitude. In the 20th century, the German philosopher Martin Heidegger focused his attention on this very point. He no longer asked in an abstract way, "What is time?" He asked a more existential question. What does time mean for being itself? In Heidegger's view, the fundamental characteristic of a human being, what he called Dasein, is that we are beings who are being towards death. We are, as far as we know, the only beings in the universe who not only know we will die, but live our entire lives in the knowledge of this fact. And it is this inescapable awareness of finitude and death that shapes the entirety of our existence. Our anxiety, our cares, our plans, our hopes, our sense of urgency, all of these stem from that most fundamental voice deep within us. My time is limited. Therefore, for Heidegger, time is no longer an objective container to be measured. Time is the very structure and horizon of our being. We are not like a stone that has fallen into the river of time. We are the river itself. Our existence is a constantly unfolding, tension-filled process between the weight of the past, the call of the future, and the resolution of the present. And when we shift our gaze slightly from the Western philosophical tradition, with its focus on linearity, finality, and existential meaning, towards the East, we see a completely different landscape of time. In many Eastern wisdom traditions, such as Hinduism and Buddhism, time is often not understood as a straight line with a beginning and an end. It is more like a circle without beginning or end, an eternally turning wheel, a great Dharma wheel. In the Hindu cosmology, the universe itself undergoes grand, cyclical periods of creation, sustenance, destruction, and rebirth, measured in units called yugas. Life, too, follows a similar pattern, endlessly experiencing birth, death, and rebirth in the wheel of samsara. There is no absolute beginning and no final judgment day. Everything is just cyclically recurring within the eternal, rhythmic breath of the cosmos. This view of cyclical time might feel a bit strange, perhaps even negative, to those raised in linear time cultures, where concepts like progress, development, and gone forever are paramount. But the concept of cyclical time also contains a deep, peaceful wisdom. It teaches us to recognize the omnipresent patterns and rhythms in all things. It invites us to embrace the value of return and repetition. It sees change not as a final farewell to the past, but as a graceful, necessary turn in the eternal dance of the universe. In this worldview, time is not a scarce resource to be saved, managed, or used efficiently. It is more like a grand rhythm, within which we can dance and breathe, with peace and at ease. And of course, there is the French philosopher Henri Bergson, who made an exquisitely beautiful and important distinction. He believed we often confuse two completely different kinds of time. One is the spatialized clock time, measured by science and displayed on our watches. This time is cold, uniform, and can be divided into countless equivalent instants. It's like a necklace made of countless separate pearls. The other, however, is the lived time that we truly experience within our lives, a continuous and indivisible flow, which Bergson called duration or durée. This time of duration is warm, fluid, heterogeneous, and full of creativity. It cannot be measured, only felt, It is not a series of separate pearls, but more like a melody that is constantly, organically, growing, changing, and blending. When the clock tells you that your conversation with a friend lasted exactly 2 hours, that is clock time. But your heart tells you that those 2 hours felt like only 5 fleeting minutes. This is the real, live time of duration. Bergson believed that only this duration is truly real time, and clock time is just a crude, spatialized simplification and distortion of this living duration, which we have created for the convenience of acting in the external world. So, you see, in the eyes of these great thinkers, how many different faces has time revealed? It can be the soul's memory and expectation. It can be the mind's a priori framework. It can be the existential structure of a life lived towards death. It can be the eternal, cyclical rhythm of the cosmos. And it can also be the creative, inner duration of life itself. These philosophers, perhaps, have not, and can never, give us a single, final answer to what time is, but they have, with their profound, lifelong gaze, given us something that may be far more valuable. They have given us a series of different mirrors, so that we can, from different angles, look back at our own relationship with time. They remind us that time is not just an objective channel that we must passively pass through. It is, more deeply, a life process, one that requires us to actively and positively participate in and create, with our consciousness, our emotions, and our choices. Time does not just flow past us, it also flows through us, in every thought, every heartbeat, every quiet moment that is being deeply felt by you, right here, right now. Our journey, like a ship sailing through the night, has quietly passed through many strange and profound seas, and now, it is time to slowly furl our sails, and let this small vessel of consciousness, here in this final, tranquil harbor, rock gently with the softest of waves. Together, we have gazed upon the pendulum, and listened to the beat within. We have ascended to Einstein's curving cosmos, and descended into the potentially timeless abyss of the quantum world. We have sought the origin of time's error, and lingered in the gardens of the philosophers. After all this exploration, we return to that initial question: is time, really, just an illusion? Perhaps the key lies in how we understand the word illusion. When we say time is an illusion, we don't mean it is false or deceitful, like a magician's trick. It is more like the rainbow we see, physically. There is no 7-colored arch in the sky. It is just a beautiful optical illusion, created for us by light and water droplets at a specific angle. But can you say that a rainbow isn't real? No. Its beauty, its fleetingness, the joy it brings you, these are 100% real. Perhaps time is like this as well. Even if it is truly the grandest illusion, woven together by our brains, our perceptions, and the laws of our universe, it is also the most necessary, the most gentle, and the most beautiful illusion imaginable. Because it is this illusion that gives our life structure. It allows us to have a past to look back on, a present to hold on to, and a future to hope for. It is this illusion that creates narrative, and we are the protagonists living in our own stories, feeling growth through change, learning to cherish after loss. And it is this illusion that makes possible the purest joys of life, the process of watching a sunset, the flow of listening to a piece of music, the lingering feeling of an embrace. These are not glitches in a system, they are the very essence of what it means to be alive. So, time may be strange, it may be relative, and at its deepest level, it may not exist in the way we perceive it, but your experience of it is real. The marks it leaves as it flows through your life, the scars of memory, the ripples of joy are real. All the emotions it evokes within your heart are utterly and truly real. It is much like having a vivid, lifelike dream. Upon waking, you know the dreamscape was not physically real, but the feelings it gave you, the freedom of flight, the warmth of a reunion will linger in your heart for a long, long time. The meaning of the dream is real. Perhaps time is like this as well. Perhaps we are all, together, living a waking dream called life. And tonight, this dream is about to enter its most tranquil, most profound chapter. So, as you lie here quietly, now, let go of all the questions about time. Let go of regrets about the past. Let go of anxieties about the future. Simply, rest here. Rest in each one of your steady, gentle breaths. An inhale, and an exhale. Feel how this fading now gently, silently, transforms into just a moment ago, and how the approaching next second quietly becomes this moment. This process is so natural, so peaceful, it requires no effort from you at all. You need only to passively, completely, trust it, and follow it. Let the river of time gently carry you. It will drift you toward that deep ocean of sleep, where there are no thoughts, no worries. There, your body will be restored, and your mind will be cleansed. And now, this story about time is coming to its end, and your story, your dreams, are just about to begin. Good night. Sweet dreams.